Let me start with something that might sound a little controversial. A lot of people who look rich aren't actually wealthy. And the difference between those two things, rich and wealthy, can completely change the direction of your life. Today, we're breaking down why most people chase the wrong one and how to make sure you don't. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss this.
Great to have you on another episode of Legacy Beyond Wealth. He is Rob Shelton, founder at Axio Wealth Management. And we have a good conversation. Everybody wants to be rich or wealthy. Robin, I think on the surface, most people would say, okay, isn't that the same thing?
Yeah, very, very interesting to think that it might be the same thing. But, when we look at someone and say, man, they're rich, we're usually looking at them and classifying that based on the type of house they have, the lifestyle that they live, the cars they drive, the trips they take, very much an outward appearance, whereas wealthy is more about freedom. It's about having the assets and to plan your life. That doesn't mean that you have to plan on it being dependent upon your next paycheck. And there's a really big difference there.
Yeah, that is a huge difference. So it's more kind of an outward appearance as the rich side, where wealthy is not. And I'm curious why. I mean, I guess I understand why people chase rich. I guess it's always been, something that people have always done. Maybe so more now in this kind of look at me era with social media, right? Where everything, your best foot is kind of put forward and you don't see a lot of the challenges and setbacks. But in your opinion, and kind of from what you've seen from talking with people that you work with, Rob, why do people chase this idea of being rich rather than wealthy?
I think it's just because in our brains, we're just designed to be able to have this comparison. Sometimes we talk about it, keeping up with the Joneses, as the saying goes, or whatever that might be. And if you don't have a plan in place of what wealthy means for you, then all you have to do is to be able to go out and to try to become rich. And I think that's the biggest difference for me, is having a wealth plan in place. What can you do to be able to build that financial freedom, unlock that financial freedom, to be able to have the ability to not be dependent on your lifestyle being on your next paycheck. And I think when people think about it, that's where true wealth is at, is that now you have the ability to use the time the way you want to, and it's not dependent upon an employer. Whereas if you're rich, boy, you think about it and go, this might be what I consider to be wealthy. But if you really look at it, most people are so much tied to the debt that's associated with that perception of being rich that they just have to be a slave to time to be able to go get that job done.
Yeah, not a position that you want to be in, right? So I'm curious how you've seen this play out in real life. Do you have any examples that you can share?
Oh, probably way too many. And I don't know if I have enough time. Let me just pick a few here that are there. I remember early on in my career, sat down with a couple, and they're making over $750,000 a year. And most people would think, man, that is being rich, and that they could be able to do whatever they wanted to, or have the freedom to do whatever they wanted to. And unfortunately, they didn't have enough discipline to take any of that money and put it away for a rainy day, or to be able to work for them to build wealth. They just thought that money was always going to come in. Unfortunately, we had the downturn of 2008 that many of us remember, and his business got decimated, and they're nowhere near that amount of money. And, as we got talking with them, we found that it wasn't a right fit for us to take them on as a client. And so we parted ways, but I've kind of watched from afar, real interested to see where things are at. And, I often think about how their lives would be different if they actually were trying to chase being wealthy versus being rich that's out there.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people do. And that's why we wanted to talk about this situation here, because, it is very prevalent, I think, in this day and age to want to look the part rather than necessarily, the wealthy isn't always seen, right? I mean, there's a lot of people. I think you always hear the stories about, the guy that's driving the beat up Honda Accord for 25 years, and he's the one that has all the money versus the guy with the Corvette that's struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. And there's a hidden cost to being, to looking successful, isn't there?
There is. I'm thinking of a couple other stories that to tell you about. I would call this more about the illusion of wealth, or when you think someone is wealthy, but they really aren't. And that's because they're in debt up to their eyeballs trying to live the lifestyle that they have. we used to do a lot of fundraising for some different charities with a lot of exotic car owners. And there's a certain group of people that would show up all the time, and they would put on this persona of being rich. They drove these amazing exotic vehicles, and you'd think, man, anyone that could afford that would have to have a lot of wealth. But when you dug into it and you got to know them, come to find out their whole business went bankrupt. They lost all the Porsches that they owned, and there wasn't anything really sustaining behind it. It was just trying to give that impression that they were rich. I've also had a few people that have been referred to us over time where they were influencers on social media, had lots of followings that were out there, and they had to give this persona of wealth so people would be able to want to follow them on social media. But when we dug into it, come to find out they were not financially disciplined at all. And we didn't end up taking them on as clients because they didn't have the goal set to be able to build wealth. It was about living as if I can be perceived as being rich. And that's just not in alignment with what we do. Contrast that to another influencer that's a great client of ours, and they've done phenomenal in being disciplined and not having to give this perception and this persona that's out there. They do live a really good lifestyle, but they have built wealth behind it to be able to give them the time. So if an algorithm changes from social media, from being an influencer, they really do have the wealth built up, that it's not contingent upon always putting out the next item that might go viral or whatever that might be. And so contrasting those together hopefully helps people understand a little bit between being rich versus being wealthy.
Are you ready to unlock the freedom to live your best life? Schedule your no-cost 60-minute discovery meeting with our team today. During this session, we'll take the time to understand your family story and financial dreams. Together, we'll craft a personalized roadmap designed to help you achieve your goals. Let's explore how we can unlock the freedom for you and your family to thrive. Just click the link in the description of today's show to get started.
Yeah, that's really the real danger, right? One change, especially in this kind of new era of an influencer role, right? Everything can kind of unravel without that safety net and that structure behind it. And the other underlying issue here too is this lifestyle inflation, right, Rob? Because you hear about it all the time. People that get the raise and they continue to kind of elevate their lifestyle, and they're not really doing anything with that extra money except putting it towards more stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking of sudden wealth as well as another big issue that's out there. So usually when you get a big check from an exit of a company or things of that nature, it goes pretty quick. And having to talk through people a little bit about, hey, now that we have it, how do we keep it and put a plan into place? I'm thinking of one client that we had, very, very big exit from selling their business, and they ended up staying in their house for multiple years after that, driving the same vehicles, not changing their lifestyle at all, just because they were so worried about that, because they saw so many other people that had sold their businesses and then later on were broke and didn't have anything to show for it because they blew through it so fast. And they had the discipline to be able to say, let's plan for this so we can really create that wealth that gives that time back to us. And so really those are kind of some examples I think are there to have it out there. So just as we look at it, you got to stop chasing perception. You don't need to prove anything to anybody. Focus on your actual financial position and not how it looks. And look to create margin. And what I mean by that is the gap between what you make and what you spend. That's where the wealth is built. And being able to put that away to be able to work for you, to be able to really buy your time back in the future is what you really need to have. And then build a plan that you can have with a professional that's built on all sorts of type of diversification that can help protect that wealth that you're trying to be able to build.
Yeah, three great steps there to kind of keep in mind. And again, this doesn't mean, Rob, that you can't enjoy life, right? I mean, it's not about getting rid of all the pleasures and can't spend any money, right? It's just about making sure you're prioritizing stability, aren't you?
Yeah, it is. And usually people go to one extreme or the other when you give the advice. And so hopefully those that are watching that are good and disciplined financially already aren't feeling like they got to do more and cut back in some of those other items. But it is about balance. But this is where it's great. And this is what I love about clients is having the ability to pick up a professional like myself and have that phone call conversation with them and say, hey, what am I looking to be able to do this, that, or the other? And what's the ramifications and risks that I'm looking at by doing that? So it is about enjoying and living your life, but also about making sure you have that advice to help keep you in that position to live that best life as you want to be able to envision it.
Well, if you're looking to better kind of structure your finances and to make sure that you're leaning more towards the wealthy side versus the rich, just to make sure that you have things on track and hey, that you have that safety net should something go wrong, get in touch with Rob, AxioWM.com, or give him a call, 801-717-9237. Take advantage of that discovery call that they offer everyone here by watching and listening to Legacy Beyond Wealth. But we appreciate you. Hopefully this makes you think a little bit about kind of where your mindset is, if your priorities are straight, and if they're not, now's the best time to take the next step towards doing that. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being part of the video. Please subscribe. We'll talk to you again soon.